Viking warriors were crossing the North Atlantic with clean drinking water over 1,000 years ago, long before anyone understood bacteria or water purification. While we panic if our tap water tastes a little funny, these seafaring masters developed ingenious systems that kept entire crews hydrated during months-long voyages to places like Greenland and North America. Today, we're discovering 8 brilliant Viking water techniques that put our modern camping gear to shame. Get ready to discover why these ancient mariners never worried about running out of clean water, even in the middle of nowhere. The Longship rain catcher, nature's own water factory. The Vikings turned their iconic longships into floating water collection systems that would make modern engineers jealous. Unlike the square-rigged ships that came centuries later, Viking longships had a unique advantage. Their single square sail could be quickly repositioned into the perfect rain-catching funnel. When storm clouds appeared on the horizon, the entire crew would spring into action with practiced efficiency. The massive woolen sail, normally stretched tight to catch wind, would be loosened and angled to create what the Vikings called a sky bowl. The waterproof sealskin ropes that normally held the sail taut became adjustable channels, directing precious rainwater toward waiting containers. But here's the clever part. Vikings didn't just catch any rainwater. They understood that the first few minutes of rainfall would wash salt spray and bird droppings off their sail, so they'd let this dirty water flow overboard. Only after the sail was naturally cleaned would they begin collecting the pure rainwater that followed. Modern science confirms their instinct was spot on. This technique removed most contaminants before they ever reached their drinking supply. The Vikings also used their distinctive overlapping shield walls as secondary water collectors. During storms, warriors would angle their round wooden shields to create mini gutters along the ship's sides. Each shield became a small funnel, channeling water toward the central collection area. It's like having a dozen personal rain catchers working simultaneously. What made this system truly brilliant was its speed. A Viking crew could transform their longship from sailing mode to water collection mode in under 5 minutes. Compare that to modern camping, where setting up a simple tarp takes longer, and you'll appreciate the efficiency these seafaring masters achieved. The most experienced crews could collect over 200 gallons of fresh water during a single storm, enough to sustain them for weeks of additional sailing. But collecting rainwater was just the beginning. Vikings needed containers that could keep that precious water fresh for months at sea. The leather water skin, Viking hydration technology. Forget plastic water bottles. Vikings perfected portable hydration with their ingenious leather water skins. These weren't just simple bags. They were sophisticated containers that kept water fresh for weeks at sea. Made from specially treated seal, walrus, or cattle hide, each skin could hold up to 3 gallons of water, while remaining completely waterproof. The secret was in the preparation. Vikings would cure the leather using a mixture of oak bark, seal oil, and pine resin. This created a natural antimicrobial coating that prevented bacteria growth, essentially turning each water skin into a primitive but effective water purification system. The tanning process took weeks, but the result was a container that could outlast multiple voyages across the harshest northern seas. Here's what's fascinating. Vikings discovered that water stored in these leather skins actually tasted better after a few days at sea. The natural oils in the leather acted as a flavor enhancer, while the slight acidity from the tanning process helped preserve the water's freshness. Modern research shows that properly treated leather contains natural antibacterial compounds that can inhibit harmful microorganisms for extended periods. Each Viking warrior carried his own personal water skin, usually holding about a gallon, enough for 2 days of normal consumption. But the really smart part was the carrying system. The skins were designed with leather straps that distributed weight evenly across the body, allowing warriors to stay hydrated during long rowing sessions without the water sloshing around and throwing off their balance. The Vikings even developed different sizes for different purposes: small personal skins for daily use, medium skins for sharing among rowing partners, and massive communal skins that could supply an entire crew during emergencies. It's like having a complete hydration system that weighs less than a modern backpack. Some of the largest communal skins could hold up to 15 gallons, and were reinforced with whalebone strips to prevent bursting under pressure. While leather skins were perfect for storage, Vikings also needed ways to purify questionable water they found during their explorations. The birch bark filter, nature's water purification system. Long before anyone understood the science of filtration, Vikings were using birch bark to create surprisingly effective water purifiers. Birch trees were abundant in Scandinavia, and Viking shipbuilders quickly discovered that the bark had remarkable water-cleaning properties that could transform murky stream water into crystal-clear drinking water. The process was elegantly simple. Vikings would peel large sheets of birch bark and layer them in wooden containers, creating a natural filtration system. The bark's unique cellular structure acted like a biological sieve, trapping particles and impurities while allowing clean water to pass through. What they didn't know was that birch bark contains natural compounds called betulin and betulinic acid, which have antimicrobial properties. But Vikings took this basic concept and made it even more effective. They'd create multi-layer filters using different materials. Coarse gravel at the bottom, then sand, then multiple layers of birch bark, and finally clean wool at the top. Water poured through this system would emerge crystal clear and surprisingly fresh tasting, often cleaner than the water sources available in medieval European cities. The really ingenious part was how they made these filters portable. Vikings would construct collapsible filtration systems using flexible birch bark containers that could be folded flat when not in use. When they needed clean water, they'd unfold the bark, add their filtering materials, and have a working water purifier in minutes. The entire system weighed less than 5 pounds, but could process dozens of gallons per day. Modern outdoor enthusiasts pay hundreds of dollars for portable water filters that essentially do the same job. Vikings created theirs from materials they could gather in any northern forest. The birch bark filters were so effective that water filtered through them could stay fresh for weeks, even in the warm holds of their ships. Some Viking crews became so skilled at birch bark filtration that they could turn muddy river water into drinking water that was cleaner than what many medieval towns had access to. It's like having a portable water treatment plant that grows on trees. The most experienced filter makers could even adjust their systems for different types of contamination, using finer or coarser materials, depending on what they were trying to remove. Even with perfect filtration, Vikings needed ways to keep their water supplies fresh during the longest voyages, which led them to discover the power of ice. If you are enjoying Raiding the Past with us, then go ahead and pillage that like button and subscribe for more interesting journeys into the world of Midgard living. The Ice Preservation Method, Viking Refrigeration Technology. Vikings discovered something that modern science has confirmed. Ice isn't just frozen water. It's a natural water preservation system. During their northern voyages, Viking crews would harvest chunks of glacial ice and store them in specially insulated compartments within their longships, creating floating refrigeration systems that could preserve water for months. This wasn't just about keeping things cold. Vikings learned that water stored in contact with clean ice stayed fresh far longer than water stored in regular containers. The ice acted as a natural refrigeration system, slowing bacterial growth and preventing the algae blooms that plagued other seafaring cultures. The constant near-freezing temperature created an environment where harmful microorganisms simply couldn't multiply. The harvesting process was an art form. Vikings would select only the clearest, oldest ice, what we now know as glacial ice, that's been compressed for years. This ice was virtually free of air bubbles and impurities, making it perfect for long-term water storage. They'd chip it into manageable chunks and wrap each piece in thick wool or fur to slow melting, sometimes adding layers of birch bark for additional insulation. Here's the brilliant part. As the ice slowly melted, it provided a steady supply of the purest water available. Glacial meltwater is naturally distilled through years of compression and refreezing, creating water that's cleaner than most modern tap water. Vikings essentially had access to premium bottled water quality centuries before anyone else understood water purity standards. The insulation system was remarkably sophisticated. Vikings would create ice storage compartments using double-walled construction filled with wool, feathers, or dried grass. These primitive coolers could keep ice frozen for weeks, even during summer voyages. Some archaeological evidence suggests that Viking ice storage was so effective they could maintain frozen supplies from Greenland all the way back to Norway, a journey that could take several months. Modern polar explorers use similar techniques, but with high-tech insulation materials. Vikings achieved the same results using only natural materials they could source during their travels. It's like having a portable glacier that provides fresh water on demand. The most advanced Viking ice systems included drainage channels that collected meltwater separately, preventing it from refreezing and maintaining a constant supply of fresh liquid water. But what happened when Vikings landed on shores where no surface water was visible? They had an ingenious solution for that too. The seepage well technique, Viking groundwater engineering. When Vikings landed on unknown shores, they didn't just hope to find freshwater streams. They created their own water sources using ingenious seepage well techniques. This method allowed them to find clean drinking water even on seemingly barren coastlines, where no obvious water sources existed. The process required understanding groundwater behavior that wouldn't be formally studied until centuries later. Vikings would land their longships and immediately begin digging shallow wells about 100 feet inland from the high tide line. They knew that fresh groundwater often floated on top of heavier salt water, creating a lens of drinkable water just below the surface, even on islands that appeared completely dry. But Vikings didn't just dig random holes. They'd look for specific geological indicators, areas where the sand was darker, spots where morning dew lingered longer, or places where certain plants grew. These natural signs told them where fresh water was most likely to be found underground. Experienced Viking scouts could identify promising well sites within minutes of landing, often finding water where others saw only barren rock and sand. The well construction was surprisingly sophisticated. Vikings would dig a hole about 3 feet wide and line it with flat stones to prevent cave-ins. Then they'd add a layer of clean gravel at the bottom, followed by sand, creating a natural filtration system. The well would slowly fill with filtered groundwater that was often cleaner than surface streams, and the stone lining prevented contamination from surface runoff. Here's what made Viking seepage wells superior to simple holes in the ground. They understood that the first water to seep in might be contaminated with surface runoff, so they'd bail out the initial water and wait for the well to refill. This second filling usually provided crystal clear water that could sustain an entire crew. The process typically took 2 to 3 hours from start to finish, but provided a renewable water source that could last for weeks. Modern military survival manuals teach essentially the same technique Vikings perfected over 1,000 years ago. The difference is that Vikings could construct a functional seepage well in under an hour using only basic tools, while modern instructions assume you have specialized digging equipment. Some Viking landing sites in Iceland and Greenland still show evidence of these ancient wells, and remarkably, many still produce clean water today. It's like having a renewable water source that keeps working centuries after its creators moved on. Archaeological studies have found Viking seepage wells that are still functional after more than 800 years, testament to their superior construction techniques. Finding fresh water was crucial, but Vikings also discovered how to make their water supplies last longer through a surprising preservation method: the fermented water preservation, Viking biochemistry. Vikings discovered that slightly fermented water stayed fresh longer than pure water, a finding that modern science has validated through understanding beneficial bacteria and natural preservation. This wasn't about making alcoholic drinks. It was about creating a stable water supply that wouldn't spoil during long voyages, sometimes lasting 3 to 4 months without refrigeration. The process began with adding small amounts of honey, berries, or tree sap to freshwater containers. These natural sugars would begin a controlled fermentation process that created an environment hostile to harmful bacteria while encouraging beneficial microorganisms. The result was water that had a slightly tangy taste but remained safe to drink for months, often becoming more nutritious over time as beneficial compounds developed. Vikings called this preserved water ship's drink, and it became a crucial part of their long-distance sailing strategy. The fermentation process created natural acids that prevented the growth of dangerous pathogens while maintaining the water's nutritional value. Modern research shows that controlled fermentation can actually increase the vitamin content of stored water, particularly B vitamins and vitamin C, that prevented scurvy during long voyages. The really clever part was how Vikings controlled the fermentation process. They'd use different additives depending on the season and intended voyage length. Honey created a slower, more stable fermentation, perfect for multi-month journeys. Berry juices provided faster fermentation with added vitamins. Tree saps like birch or maple created unique flavor profiles, while adding natural minerals that supported overall health during long periods at sea. Each Viking crew developed their own secret recipes for fermented water preservation. Some added herbs like mint or thyme, which provided additional antimicrobial properties. Others used specific combinations of fruits and honey that created water supplies with distinct regional flavors. The most prized recipes were closely guarded secrets, passed down through generations of Viking families, and considered as valuable as navigation knowledge. What's remarkable is that this fermented water was often healthier than the pure water available in medieval towns. The fermentation process eliminated harmful bacteria, while adding beneficial compounds that supported digestive health. Vikings essentially created probiotic drinks centuries before anyone understood gut bacteria, giving them a significant health advantage during long voyages when fresh food was scarce. Modern kombucha and other fermented beverages use similar principles, but Vikings applied this knowledge specifically to water preservation for maritime survival. It's like having a natural water treatment system that actually improves the nutritional value of your drinking supply. Some Viking fermented water recipes were so effective that the water would remain safe to drink for over 6 months, far longer than any other preservation method available at the time. While fermentation helped preserve water, Vikings also developed sophisticated storage systems that kept their supplies clean and accessible. The wooden cask charcoal system, Viking water purification. Vikings developed a sophisticated water storage system using specially prepared wooden casks lined with charcoal, creating what was essentially a primitive but highly effective water filtration and storage system. This technique kept water fresh and clean for months at sea, far longer than simple wooden barrels could manage, and actually improved water quality over time. The process started with selecting the right wood. Vikings preferred oak for its tight grain and natural antimicrobial properties, but they'd also use birch or pine when oak wasn't available. The key was in the preparation. They'd char the inside of each cask until it was covered with a layer of activated carbon, creating a natural filtration system that worked continuously as long as water remained in the container. This charcoal lining wasn't just about preventing leaks. Vikings discovered that charred wood removed bad tastes and odors from stored water. Though they didn't understand, they were creating activated carbon filters. Modern science shows that activated carbon can remove chlorine, organic compounds, and many harmful chemicals from water, making it one of the most effective natural purification methods available. But Vikings took this basic concept further. They'd add layers of different materials inside their charcoal-lined casks. Clean sand at the bottom, then small pieces of charcoal, then more sand, creating a multi-stage filtration system within the storage container itself. Water stored in these casks would actually become cleaner over time as it slowly filtered through the layers, removing impurities that might have been missed during initial collection. The construction process was remarkably sophisticated. Vikings would heat stones in their fires, then drop them into water-filled casks to create steam that would char the interior wood evenly. This technique created a more consistent charcoal layer than simply burning the inside of the barrel, ensuring uniform filtration throughout the container. The process required precise timing and temperature control that took years to master. Different Viking crews developed variations on this theme. Some would add silver coins to their charcoal-lined casks, unknowingly taking advantage of silver's natural antibacterial properties. Others would include specific types of stones or crystals that they believed had purifying powers, and in some cases, they were accidentally correct about the mineral content improving water quality through natural ion exchange. The most advanced Viking water casks included removable charcoal filters that could be cleaned and recharged during long voyages. They'd remove the old charcoal, burn it to reactivate the carbon, and reinstall it for continued filtration. It's like having a renewable water purification system that could be maintained indefinitely with basic fire-making skills. Some of these casks were so well designed that they could purify and store water for over a year without any degradation in quality. All of these individual techniques were impressive, but the real genius was in how Vikings coordinated them into a comprehensive water management strategy. The Communal water management system, Viking hydration strategy. Perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of Viking water management wasn't any single technique. It was their comprehensive system for managing water resources across an entire crew during months-long voyages. This communal approach ensured that everyone stayed hydrated while preventing waste and contamination, creating a survival system that could sustain 30 to 50 people for months in the open ocean. Every Viking longship had a designated waterkeeper, usually an experienced sailor, who understood the various preservation and purification techniques. This person was responsible for monitoring water quality, rationing supplies, and deciding when to implement different water gathering strategies. It was like having a dedicated water engineer whose job was keeping everyone alive, with the authority to override even the ship's captain when water conservation was critical. The rationing system was remarkably fair and efficient. Each crew member received a daily water allocation based on their role, the weather conditions, and the remaining voyage time. Rowers got extra rations during heavy work periods, while everyone received increased water during hot weather or when illness struck the crew. The waterkeeper maintained detailed mental records of consumption patterns, adjusting rations based on weather forecasts and estimated arrival times at the next water source. Vikings also developed a rotation system for water duties. Different crew members were responsible for maintaining the various water systems. One person managed the rain collection setup, another maintained the filtration systems, and others were responsible for finding and testing new water sources during landings. This distributed knowledge ensured that if the waterkeeper was injured or lost, multiple crew members could step in and maintain the water supply systems. The quality control process was surprisingly rigorous. Vikings would test water from different sources and storage methods, comparing taste, clarity, and how long each type stayed fresh. They developed a classification system for water quality that helped them make decisions about which supplies to use first and which to save for emergencies. Water was categorized as first drink, highest quality, ship drink, fermented but safe, or last resort, requiring additional treatment before consumption. Communication was crucial to the system's success. Vikings developed specific terms and signals for different water-related situations: warnings about contaminated sources, alerts when rain was approaching, and calls for emergency water conservation. The entire crew could coordinate water collection activities without confusion, even during storms or combat situations. Hand signals allowed silent communication about water status during raids or when stealth was required. The most impressive aspect was their backup planning. Viking crews always maintained multiple water sources simultaneously: rain collection, stored supplies, fermented reserves, and emergency purification materials. If one system failed, they had several others ready to take over immediately. This redundancy meant that Vikings rarely faced true water emergencies, even during voyages that lasted longer than originally planned. Modern military and expedition planning uses similar redundant systems, but Vikings developed these comprehensive water management strategies through practical experience rather than formal training. It's like having a complete survival manual that was passed down through generations of seafaring expertise. The most successful Viking expeditions were those that treated water management as seriously as navigation or combat preparation, understanding that hydration was the foundation of all other survival skills. Some Viking water management systems were so sophisticated that they included contingency plans for up to 6 different failure scenarios, ensuring crew survival even under the most challenging circumstances. These 8 Viking water techniques represent more than just survival skills. They're a masterclass in practical engineering and resource management. What's remarkable is how accessible these methods remain today. From rain collection and natural filtration to fermentation and ice preservation, Vikings created a complete water management system using only materials they could find or make themselves. If you have enjoyed raiding the past with us, then go ahead and pillage that like button and subscribe for more interesting journeys into the world of Midgard living.